Good evening, everybody. As usual, during our Korean talks, let us begin our Dharma talk by reciting the mantra of the universe in its purity, Om Nam, 7 times. Hapchang, please. Om Nam, Om Nam, Om Nam, Om Nam, Om Nam, Om Nam, Om Nam. Thank you very much, and welcome to the first of the 6 talks. Please turn this volume down a little bit. And as you know, tonight we will talk about individuality and karma. What it means to have a sense of I, what we think of ourselves, what we are, and what we actually are. And that's our topic today. As usual with the teaching, we start with something that we already know. We already have an image of ourselves. But the central question, in fact the core of Zen, is truly asking, what am I? Okay? So it's highly important that we truly discover what we truly are and actually not attached to what we think we are. Let me tell you a very kind of clear example. Men, strong men, they believe that they are brave. And they drive their big car fast. Then, suddenly, the police appears and stops them. Then immediately they become these little children. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. So they thought they were brave, but they're afraid of the police. So when they get stopped, they become immediately somebody else. Or they try to be the big boy, and they try to talk down to the police. Then something really big, fine or big, traffic ticket can appear. So it's a very simple example that we may think that we are something or somebody, but when we actually get into a situation, our relationship and our function do not confirm that. Or, sometimes mothers, they think, oh, I love my children so much. And in 2 or 3 years, there is a situation when you shout at your kid so bad that you never thought it would come out of your mouth. So you thought of yourself as a very compassionate person, but some situation appeared and this big anger came out. And you found nothing of this motherly, compassionate love which you thought that you always have and that you would never lose. So let us try to find out today, what is it that we can get and we can lose? Also what we cannot get, but we also cannot lose. Okay? So let's start, like I said, with what we already understand about ourselves. We call ourselves I. In English, én, in Hungarian, kein, or chega, or nega, or nan, something like that in Korean. Korean is wonderful. You have 4 major ways of describing yourself, depending on the relationship, with the world and with your partner. So we have the 5 physical senses, right? If you look at yourself, you would be sorry to lose your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body. And we also have something we call the 6th, it's thinking. Now, we are in the Orient, so it's not so difficult to explain that your thinking is also related to a sense organ created and perceived in the brain. Okay? So the first 6 levels are not so difficult to understand. And let me put it like this. Starting from the bottom, actually, so eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body. So we can draw kind of comfortably a line here. and here is mind. Now, this is something interesting, because eyes give you vision, ears are related to hearing, nose is smell, tongue is taste, and body is touch. And as it goes on, you have visual consciousness, hearing consciousness, smelling consciousness, tasting consciousness, touching consciousness. I will not write down all this again, but just put here a C. The consciousness of all this. So actually, if you think of ourselves in the very modern way as a packet of information, we have 5 kinds of physical information traveling through our being. And when we wire them together, it's called the physical entity of ourself. So our physical entity is not considered human if you don't have eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body. And the 6th, mind. With mind, it's really interesting because it's thoughts in the same line and thinking consciousness. Thinking consciousness. What does this do? Everybody in this room used a computer at least once, right? So this is your processor. This is your CPU, okay? That's where your words and thoughts are made, okay? Already not enough space. What will happen in 20 years? Already we are running out of thinking consciousness. So this is called CPU, okay? And these senses are actually your keyboard, your screen, your printer. It's called in and out ports in computing, okay? That's where you receive data, and that's where you also, dispense data into the world. Now, this is not heartless to think about ourselves as a compounded organism. We think of ourselves as a solid I. But if you look deeper, you find only thinking, vision, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and then something on top of it. It's called a label. We label this as I or ego. So above just processing, we have a decision maker. Okay? This is called discriminative consciousness. It's above conceptual thinking. Because here I have to put conceptual thinking. And that's where you form your concepts, the words. For instance, if you have a good sense for languages, then your CPU is very high class. It can run multitasking. Okay? Sometimes even multimedia. You can visualize your linguistic signs. Okay? And so this is the conceptual thinking mind. And next is the discriminative consciousness. Consciousness where you have the birthplace of good and bad. So whereas this layer here only formulated the concepts and only said that this is a microphone, this one, the discriminative consciousness, will say this is a good microphone. So you can say that this person is from Central Africa, but then this one says, I like this person from Central Africa. Okay? So this is the discriminative consciousness, and then there's another layer above that called the storehouse. The storehouse consciousness. Every single one of these have a Sanskrit name, a Pali name, a Chinese name, but I don't bore you with that. You can read your Buddhist sutras. It's right here. Storehouse consciousness. Memory. That's your memory. So your storehouse consciousness remembers, I have seen this man from Central Africa whom I liked. Okay? So they are actually fused together. All the three of them are working together seemingly inseparably. Because the moment you see somebody, you know, first time or second, third or more. You remember good memory, good impression, bad impression. That's all for you. Okay? So, depending what you have in your memory about Central Africa, you had a good time there, it's a wonderful visit, you saw many elephants, you were taken to a safari, then you tend to like all people from Central Africa. But if you had a bad memory because you almost got killed during the safari, a hippopotamus wanted to eat you, a crocodile wanted to get your leg, then Central Africa is not such a good memory for you. Then you say, oh, maybe not so much talking necessary, you know. So your memory determines a lot about your good and bad thinking, about your dualistic thinking. Now, what's really interesting that in this discriminative consciousness, you discriminate between me and not me. So this is the fundamental dualistic part of your consciousness. And if you want to get back, you know, to the computer metaphor, it's your controller. It controls you. Okay? In your computer, controllers are very simple. It tells signals, go this way, go that way. Go this way, go that way. Okay? In your dualistic consciousness, you have this. I want this, I don't want this. This one should get closer, that one should get further, you know. And remember, if you enter just space where there are human beings, it works so fast that you, for instance, don't want to get close to this person, but you want to get close to that person, so you go instinctively to this part of the room. Remember, if you enter a classroom, you go home, you enter some space where there are human beings, it's called group dynamics. So the way individuals relate to each other, and we talk about that a lot more the day after tomorrow, on Wednesday, depends on all this. Okay? So your like and dislike mind even controls how you occupy space on a bus. Like a young man who is looking for a girlfriend goes instinctively closer to younger women than to older people. It happens. Like older people who really want to kind of have a secure company, they go to other people of the same age. It's basic human psychology. Okay? Now, just to give you, this is the alaya, this is the manas, and this is just vijnana in Sanskrit if you read about it. And what's your memory? These days it's hard drive, and that's your hard drive. Okay? Now, I brought this metaphor of computer for you so that you would have another idea, another picture, another metaphor or a simile. But we, human beings, are not computers. So you may ask, and even physicists and biotechnologists, they ask, what is the major difference between machine and a human being? What is it? Huh? Thinking, you can teach a machine to think in programming language.
Emotion.
No.
Conflict.
No.
Intellectual.
No.
Compassion.
No. You can actually teach a robot to be compassionate. It's not science fiction anymore. You can program that to detect emotional states. If you think about this consciousness, then no. Actually, if you look at chess games, sometimes machine beats man. The Big Blue, it's an IBM computer, was having a tournament with, I think, the top 3 world players, and 2 of them it beat. The third one, it couldn't beat. You know? So there is something really interesting about human beings, and we had better find it. Otherwise, next lifetime, you will be machine.
You cannot have a baby.
Yes, they can. They can in fact, they do have a baby if you think of machine making machine. Robots make your cars. So you go to Hyundai factory, Kia, Daewoo, Samsung, whichever factory you want to visit, machines are making machines. They can have.
Machine has a limited memory.
No.
Limited information.
No. Limited memory and limited information we both have. Machine and human also.
Feeling.
No, you can program a machine to have feelings. In fact, our parents teach us what kind of feelings we should have. So you see, when a kid just makes a mistake and doesn't want to notice, then parents say, you should feel sorry, you know. And, you know, great men, they are also taught how to bow when they make mistake. I've seen that in Asia. People with suit and tie, in very high position, sometimes they bow to the nation and they ask for apology. In the West, we lost that tradition, unfortunately. Hmm?
Those consciousness in human changes without consciousness.
Not clear. So let me just outline the basic difference between machine and man, and that's something we call Buddha nature. So a computer doesn't say I with the same consciousness as human being. It has to be programmed, and it cannot reflect. It cannot alter itself. Human beings can get enlightenment by having this introspection into our basic core being. No matter how much you teach a computer to say, what am I, it will never get enlightenment. It will just keep repeating this question in an endless loop. But humans can go beyond thinking. We can leave all this behind. We can become free. A machine cannot. They don't have the impulse for that. They don't have the knowledge of that. So what we term as Buddha nature is this clear mirror consciousness which is listening in you right now. Okay? Which wants to understand this, process this, and use this. And based on this, we realize that we have the same substance. Everything else is different. The content of your hard drive is different in each case. Your controller, the programming of your controller, all different. The way your CPU works, all different. The way you see the world is largely the same, but individually, we all see things differently, depending on our eyes, our vision, and our visual consciousness. Everything which we can describe as karma, cause and effect, everything is different, but only our Buddha nature, our basic human nature is the same. What proves that? Not just the fact that some people are really called enlightened people and we accept them as such and they teach us because they are wiser. Also, this very simple thing we call compassion. How do we connect with other beings? Only through this substance which we have. If we are attached to the differences, we can never truly enter the shoes or perceive the feelings of another human being. You know? Sometimes our thinking is so strong that we don't even see the person right in front of us. When your thinking goes away, your mind becomes clear like space, clear like a mirror. And then you reflect the other person. You become one with the other person. You feel what he or she feels. Sometimes you may even perceive what he or she thinks. Okay? You all have that. So why don't we use that? The reason why we do not use that most of the time is our identification with all this. We call this I. We call this, ourself. But this is just our machine. It's our machine, okay? And if we really ask, what am I? We get into the state of no thinking, because this question absorbs all your dualistic thinking, all your memories, and all your cognition. And then your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body will become very clear. And eventually your thinking will become also very clear. A machine cannot understand the Heart Sutra. Human beings can practice the Heart Sutra even if they don't understand the thinking behind it. And what does the Heart Sutra say? It says you are originally no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind. Okay? Remember the Heart Sutra, which as Buddhists you recite every day. It's a functional description what a human being is. Remember how it begins? It says, Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, in the state of transcendental wisdom, perceives that the 5 blocks of your personality, the 5 skandhas, are originally empty. That means we don't exist in the way we think we exist. We exist in a totally different way from conventional thinking. And the attachment to conventional thinking creates all our suffering. Okay? In fact, here in your controller, you create what we call wrong views or ignorance. And based on ignorance, you have anger and desire. You make good or bad, positive, negative, so you produce attraction and detachment, or actually not detachment, but detraction. When you push things away or you want to attract things. So one type is the desire type of consciousness, and the other is the anger type of consciousness. Okay? What you don't like, you want to destroy. What you want as a desired object, you want to multiply. And that's based on delusion. And interestingly enough, the wisdom of the enlightened ones, that informs us about this. So it functions. It's not just something for your brain, it's something for your whole being. It's for your whole life. Why? Because the way you live your life is actually conditioning your next lifetime. What happens when you die? When you die, your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and thinking become disconnected from the higher two. Because all this depends on the brain and the sensory objects, the sensory organs, your body, etc. So when you die, then the activity, the conscious activity of these 6, they become erased. Completely erased. And what is the material of this is going into your next body. Okay? That's why it's so serious to have the clear memory and clear, discrimination, so that you would have the correct rebirth. And the teaching tells you what is correct rebirth too. Being born close to the teaching, being born in a human body, not just like a temple dog or a temple cat. You see temple dogs and cats. They are there and they are listening to Yebul, But they have animal body. So when we see them, we always say, be careful. Next time, human body necessary. Okay? They have some Buddhist karma, but not so clear practice. Maybe a little bit attached to food, attached to comfort, then can become dog or cat. Remember, there was a great Chinese Zen master, and at the end of the winter retreat, he asked the students, the monks, when you die, how will you be reborn? Nobody could answer. And then he said, when I die, I will be reborn as a cow in my lay supporter's house. The question is, why did he say that? We talked about temple dogs and cats, so what's the relationship between the cow in the layman's house and them? When monks and nuns receive donation, it's really for practicing the Dharma. If they do not practice the Dharma correctly, if they don't put enough effort into it, or their direction is not correct, they have to pay it back. So then they are reborn as animals who only serve lay people to pay them back. So what does a cow do? Just stands in the shed, sometimes takes a little walk, and eat and gives milk, and later the meat and leather and bones and everything. So that's a possible karma if they make the wrong decision. So as long as you have any identification with your memory, or identification with your discriminative consciousness, you will be reborn. The moment you let go and do not identify with any of these two, you become free. It's as simple as that. And then you return to don't know. Don't think about nirvana or heaven or all these concepts. They are the making of your CPU. It doesn't exist. That's why in the old days Zen masters said, even thinking about enlightenment is a big mistake. Because when you think, you cannot get it. Okay? When you return before thinking, then spontaneously you become one. And you attain. And that's not based on thinking. Okay? So it's truly important to see how our consciousness operates, and your meditation experience can confirm that. So my kind of really good situation here is that you don't have to believe me. You can check. You can observe. And I encourage you to observe and double check. Does this explanation really work like that? And if it doesn't, discard it. Don't believe it. Don't follow it. But if you find that it works, then you may use it to become a more clear and more compassionate and correctly, trained human being, because you train yourself. Okay? So that's our immense human potential, that unlike any other beings on this earth, we human beings have what we call Buddha nature. That means the potential for enlightenment. To go beyond thinking, and as the mantra of Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisvaha says, go through the gate and become Buddha. We can do that. So that's our great human potential, and I wish that none of us would waste time and we would attain to that. Because frankly, this world has so many problems, which is coming from the sense of I, that unless you really attain what we truly are, there is no external solutions. There is no correct alternative. Because humanity in the last couple of thousand years have taken so many alternatives that resulted more or less in the same bad, critical, dramatic situation. And right now, we are having one. And everybody in this room knows this. So, external alternatives will not work unless your consciousness becomes different. Unless you really attain what this world is. Because when you attain, it's not just you. It's everything and everyone becoming one. Because we share the same substance. So your substance, my substance, all being substance, all names and form substance is the same substance. So when we attain that, then based on this attainment, which is totally clear like space, your mind, my mind, everyone's mind becomes clear like a mirror also. So, substance, clear like space. Okay? And based on this substance, you perceive truth. You see that the sky is blue and the tree is green. Some human beings have white face, some yellow, some red, some black, some brown. They are not better or worse. The color is different. That's all. Okay? So truth is clear like mirror. Red comes, see only red. White comes, see only white. That's all. In Eastern Europe, if you show red, or it's a red star, people think, what do you want with communism? If you show a red star in Munich, they think it's Heineken beer. You know? Or if you show a white star a little bit further west, oh, NATO. So it's all made by human thinking. So one day somebody said, let us make the small red star into Heineken logo. Another day they said, okay, let us make the red star the logo of communism. That's a much bigger red star, okay? Let's make the sickle and the hammer, also the sign of communist rule. So it became like that. Anytime you talk about that in ex-communist countries, it's right there. They understand that because it's in their mind. They remember that. Okay? It's not bad to remember. It's also not bad to distinguish that, but to identify with it and to attach to it results in some really stupid actions and stupid speech and very deluded thinking. I give you an example. Somebody in rural Hungary put a red star over the top of the Christmas tree because it's customary to put a star of your heart, of emotion or fire on top of the Christmas tree. And he got prosecuted because they said that he's using a communist symbol. So he had to go to court and explain himself that he's actually not propagating an old dictatorial system. He's actually using it on top of a Christmas tree. And everybody said, what? How is this possible? And we all know the answer. It's possible by deluded thinking. Okay? So if we attain our substance, we see the truth as it truly is. Not what we think it is, but as it truly is. And then the next is function. That goes into clear thoughts, clear feelings, clear speech, and clear action. So really the question here, after really attaining our true self, is how do we keep this mind which sees the truth? How do we keep the mind which is ready to function for all beings? So the question here is, what am I? The question here is, what is this? The question here is, how may I help you? Okay? It's very simple. In fact, it's a lot more simple than my introductory. But unless you practice, we never attain that. And then the problems remain on this earth between us. The problems will get a different face, a kind of altered existence. But the very nature, the fundamentals of our problems, of our suffering, that never changes. It comes from I. It comes from the notion of the ego as a separate entity, as an isolated, entity. And that's something that we all should work with, I think. So thank you for your attention for the introductory, and now I would like to welcome questions. Any questions? You don't have to understand everything. I don't expect that. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been, try to remove the, I, myself, but try very hard. But sometimes, okay, I do it, I just, sometimes, okay, I satisfied, but sometimes later on, it's not, very difficult. All the time there is I, my, mine, myself.
Okay. That's a very good question, Sunim. And no matter how sincerely somebody tries, you cannot remove I with an I. It's like trying to put out fire with gasoline. It's not going to work. So let me just draw you a very brief summary what it means when you want to erase I with the I. Suppose that's your sense of ego, okay? And here you have your eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, thinking. You observe all this inside yourself, which you perceive of as a closed entity, and you're seeing, you're hearing, your objects of mind, you say that's I. And when you have the wrong concept of practicing, then what happens is that you transform this into good and bad. You have your small good and bad thinking here. That some people are good, some people are bad. Some things I see are good, some things are bad. But what happens when you have the wrong concept of practicing, that you have this, and you divided that this is bad and this is good. And everything which you had here goes into this second box, your old self, and this is your new Buddhist thinking, which tries to control the rest of it. Because what happens is when you start studying, then your Buddhist thinking becomes bigger, 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 and then your new Buddhist thinking tries to control your karma. So, and that's when you start to suffer so much that you think it was better before. It was better without it. So, what's really important that this big red Buddhist eye wants to control your old karmic self. And this is a no. You don't do that. You never, ever do that. So when you practice, don't check your thinking, don't check your feeling, don't label yourself as a good person, good thinking, bad, etc. It's disaster. Your job is to reflect. Stop your thinking by not controlling it. It might sound contradictory, but if you tried, you know what I mean. You cannot stop your thinking by controlling your thinking with thinking. Okay? Impossible. So, don't let your new Buddhist thinking control your karma, your kind of conventional thoughts, feelings, perceptions, impulses, and consciousness, because it can result in a split personality. And that's the problem with any religion which is based on control. Now you decide which one is actually based on that, but if you find that a kind of controlling mechanism is built into your head, I advise you not to follow it. You can always follow your clear cognition, your clear perception, your clear reflection of feelings, perceptions, impulses. You can use them, but don't use any mental control. Don't use any kind of doctrine to control your life. I'm a moral person if I do this, if I'm an immoral person if I do this. Use your clear recognition. What is correct, moment to moment. But don't follow ideas. Is this clear? I really hope so, because if you build up this system, you make your life miserable. So how this actually operates, I actually connected it with our previous chart, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind, and thinking. But the old Chinese wisdom had a much better figure for this, okay? And let me outline that. I'll be back soon. Voila. So the way your dualistic consciousness in everyday life operates was indicated with this. It's familiar, right? Even some US beverage companies, they adopted it as their logo. Anyway, this is what we call, in Chinese, the Tai Chi. Okay? Is the circle which has the duality in it. And it actually circulates. It flows. It's not a kind of static, dynamic state. Things are happening, okay? So, good and bad, high and low, I and the rest of the world, it's constantly interacting, and each and every one of them has a little touch of the other, a little taste of the other, beginning with the human body or human consciousness, You find a lot of things. In fact, if you observe all things, all name and form, follow this dynamics. Now, that's based on your thinking. In fact, it's all created by our consciousness. Again, don't believe me. Go into it, see how it works. And when you really want to attain liberation from the dualistic, shackles, from your attachment, this one doesn't try to control this one. What happens is that you return your energy before thinking, okay? And the result is something which is also familiar to most of you. that you attain a mind which is before duality. It's called in Chinese Wu Qi, or empty circle. Now, some people are worried that what's going to happen to my brain, you know? And if you remember the Heart Sutra tells you how it works. That form is emptiness, and emptiness is form. So that's something which you can only attain, but you cannot really understand. Logic falls short. So actually what happens is that this becomes this and becomes again this, okay? Constantly. How can you observe that? During meditation or when you have a quiet, clear moment, you sit down and your mind becomes still. And you see how thoughts appear out of nowhere. They are in your mind and they return to nowhere. Then they appear again. How your feelings appear based on cause and effect, then they disappear and they reappear again. And the Heart Sutra says exactly the same. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. Something which is not born is incarnated, and then if you attain liberation, returns to the unborn. Okay? So that's how it operates. And since it has such deep implications, I really encourage people just to stop, observe, return to your question, and let your question absorb all your thinking. Let your energy all return to the Tantien, to your Tanjan. And that's where the energy is before feelings, before speech, before thinking, before sensory perceptions. So actually your body can help you do that, and it's wonderful. We have that capability. So that's why when you sit in Mahamudra, it's not some ancient gesture to pay, some homage to people who also did the same, and we also don't know why. It's functional. It works. So if you try, then you see how your mind becomes totally clear. Clear like space. Clear like a mirror.